Hey, everybody, and welcome to Mission Northwest Podcast. My name is Wes Henry. I'm your host. Mission Northwest exists to resource and develop churches. And today I'm sitting with Executive Minister Corey Lawhery and our
Hello.
Director of Mission Northwest Ethics Institute, Dr. Patti Duckworth. How's it going, you guys?
Good.
It's going well.
Good. It
Beautiful
looks
day
nice.
in the Northwest.
Nice and sunny out here, man. Nice and sunny.
Yeah, I tried to do it where you can see a little bit of the rolling Palouse Hills in the background, maybe. So
Yeah. That's gorgeous.
Day.
That's gorgeous. So, Corey, go ahead and introduce our guest, and we'll get into some actual questionings.
Yeah, the Reverend Dr. Patti Duckworth has been our Associate Executive Minister of Mission Northwest for many, many years, and has served with us and helped churches find their pastors and help pastors find their ministries and so many other things. And the role has shifted to become the director of the Mission Northwest Ethics Institute, which is really an enlarging of what she has been doing for many years, teaching ethics to our pastors and lay leaders of churches. And so that is enlarging, becoming the Ethics Institute. And that's what we want to talk about today, what that is, what it offers both pastors, lay leaders, ordination candidates, and other groups. And so I'm excited to have Patti here. She comes with a wealth of experience in both her training and in teaching this at churches and the college level. So Patti, thanks for using your gifts for the kingdom. We're so glad that you are a part of the Mission Northwest family, and excited to have you on this podcast. I'm gonna let you ask the questions, Wes. Fire away.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Patti, what have you done since your doctorate was conferred upon you? When was that, and what are some of the things that you have used it for or seen it actually be put in use?
Yeah, well, thanks. It's good to be with everybody. I'm grateful for the opportunity to share a little bit, and I'm excited about all the opportunities and possibilities that are in front of us. I received my doctorate from the International Baptist Theological Seminary and the Vrije University of Amsterdam, the Netherlands, in 2024. And it was on the moral vision of Baptists in the Northwest at the beginning of our mission work out here in the 1870s. And That was pretty exciting. And it took a while to get it done, but I was really excited to do that project. And since then, I've been able to use some of the information that I gleaned from all the records, all the kind of somewhat, maybe people would think, dry and dusty stuff, to encourage our folks in our churches, to help them realize that those shoulders that we stand on were folks who had not only a heart for Jesus, but a heart for how people were treated in the Northwest. Because in the Northwest, the church as a group, as an identifiable group, was the last thing to show up. And there were a lot of other things going on that were basically people taking advantage of each other for the sake of self-aggrandizement, money-making, business, whatever you want to call it. And so it was encouraging to see that in our background, in our history, that our folks had a different idea about what that could be because of Jesus.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. What did you find the hardest part? Was it writing or was it the research?
Oh, I love the research. I'm kind of a nerd that way. Writing was okay, although it took me a while to figure out what they wanted in their form, because it was European system. So it wasn't English. Gotcha. I'm not that geeky. I'm not that good. So that was great. But probably the hardest part was caring for the churches and doing the ministry, and then finding the time to actually get myself in the chair and make it happen.
Yeah. Awesome. Were any were any of the things that you dove into during your doctorate, is that what really led you to jump into ethics? Like, did you see or encounter any of the ethics issues we're talking about now through your studies?
Yeah, it started with kind of this general, as all those kind of projects do, this general sense that was kind of murky, but the word that kept coming out, this was their language in the 1800s to start with, was that people were identifying and used this term that they saw in the people moral and spiritual destitution. And then the examples of that would be things like how Native Americans were treated, how the Chinese were treated during the 1880s, and the country went through what they end up passing as a law called the Chinese Exclusion Act, and how that went forward even up to as late as World War II, and turned into more than just Chinese. It was Asian and the whole bit. There were some real concerns about how the whole desire to have a fresh start and have a sense of I can start over, and that very positive kind of thing turned into a very destructive obsession with money and wealth and getting it on the backs of somebody else and taking advantage of people. And I see all of those things continuing today. Those seeds were planted pretty deeply in the Northwest, and many times it affected the ecology. If you go to Butte, Montana, there's this ugly spot in the ground that you can see forever and a day. That mining of copper became a big deal. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things that they were trying to wrestle with and to bring Jesus into that. If we're followers of Jesus, what does that look like? And not saying they did it perfect. None of us do, but they were wrestling with it.
Yeah. So, Patti, that study really came out of your passion for an ethical faith, because you've been teaching ethics for many, many years before your doctoral research, right? And so could you tell us maybe your journey on that a little, of teaching ethics, where it's been and where now it's going for you and for the Ethics Institute?
Yeah, I would say that the doctoral work was kind of a culmination of teaching ethics, religion, philosophy in several different places, Southern California and Montana, at the college level, academic accredited colleges. And I did it as outreach to begin with, because I did youth work, associate pastor work, that sort of thing. But I really wanted to find a way to get into where people were really at, instead of waiting for them to come to the church. So I put myself out there to do that. I had the degrees to qualify at that point, and so I taught those things, and it really was eye-opening to me how much people want to talk about this stuff, how they have these deep concerns, but they don't know where to go. The church might, for them as individuals, have a bad rap, or they might have had a personally bad experience, and they were looking for some place to go, and they were willing to pay money, even if they weren't going to get a degree, just to have some input somewhere. And when we first started doing that, I took the classes over for the Methodist pastor in California, in the town we lived, because he was going on sabbatical, and he kind of got me up to speed, and we had, it was kind of a great mentoring thing. But I qualified for that for the school, and the first couple of classes were like 10 or 12 people, but by the time we left California, I always had to let more people in than the class was scheduled for, because there was such a hunger, and that really got to me, got to my heart about what is going on here with folks. They would take the hard class and do the papers and read the stuff they had no background for reading, because they wanted something. And they would tell me stories about where they'd been, what they'd done, and how they'd heard it, and I had to be careful. It was a secular school, so I had to, be that kind of cautious, but
Yeah.
lots of conversations outside. So that's where it
Now,
started.
these were ethics classes, just to be clear.
Yes,
Classes. Yeah.
they were
Yeah.
introduction to ethics, business ethics, a class in for that was done specifically for nurses who
Mm.
needed it for their RN degree.
Okay.
Some of the classes were philosophy of religion. Some of the classes were religion. Some were straight philosophy, but there's always a religion component to that class. So it
Yeah.
came at it from several different directions. And
Mm.
some students became so interested trying to figure out this whole life thing that they would take several of those classes, even though they only needed one for their humanities credit.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that was encouraging. And,
So
that's
let's
where it
pretend somebody's watching this podcast or walks into a classroom of yours, and they come with the very simple question: why should I care about ethics?
Mm.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and one that I was asked in different ways.
Right.
I would start out by saying, "Why are you here? Why did you take this instead of Spanish or whatever was
Hmm.
offered opposite the class time?" And my kind of simple statement was, ethics is important because it deals with how we live together. And if we do it well, we have the opportunity to live well together.
Hmm.
And that's healthy, that's life-giving, that's encouraging, that's less stressful. And if we don't learn to live well together, it's pretty destructive. And the live together is not just kind of generic in a community, but live well in a family, live well in a neighborhood, live
Hmm.
well in a business, work environment. And so we dealt with the biggie topics, but it was all about helping them come up with an understanding of what's good, what's healthy, what's right, what's life giving, and
Yeah.
where do you find that?
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
That's good. Yeah. So it's just as important for churches and ministry leaders and people who are, especially they feel called to this lifestyle, called to ministry, to dive into that kind of thing. And so, as we are developing the Ethics Institute here in Michigan Northwest, what are we going to offer for churches? Like, and is it just churches, or is it churches and like other groups? Kind of give us that rundown.
yeah. Well, I think the overarching statement I want to make, Wes, is for everybody, is that this isn't cookie cutter stuff.
Mhm.
And I really have a passion for avoiding um, the mindset that says, oh, I have some information, therefore I'm ethical. That to me doesn't fit. That doesn't match.
Gotcha.
My understanding
That's good.
of a Christian life is that it's a Christ life. It's a life that is formed and molded by the cross. It's a cruciformed life.
Yeah.
So it's not I learned this, I have this information, check the box, now I'm ethical. So
Hmm.
that's the overarching statement. Because of that, I see this as being, what does your context need at your particular time to address the needs that you're facing, the questions that are in the community that you're at, whether it's your church community or churches together, or maybe your church in the neighborhood that it's at, the community that it's in. What are they wrestling with? How can the church then turn around and reflect this Christ life that brings life to self and families and churches and communities? How can we do that together in addressing the sticky wickets that we
Yeah.
have? And so it's not cookie cutter. With that in mind, we want to make it individualized around what those needs are. So maybe your congregation is wrestling with a whole slew of geeks in your church that are all over AI and technology, and they're just running down the road with that, and you're going, wait a minute, what is that
Yeah.
all about? How do we help our young people or our young adults navigate this with some Christian biblical underpinnings, some understanding of that? What is actually going on there? Or
Yeah.
I was talking to a group a couple of weeks ago that are working on putting something together, for example, because they all have on the sidebar conversations, kind of in the corners on the slide. Don't tell anybody too loud, but I have family, I have friends who are all struggling with the LGBTQ stuff, and we don't even know how to approach that. And
Right.
every time we say something, everybody gets all emotional, and it shuts down the conversation. And
Yeah.
we use a word, and it's used in a way that is heard negatively. I didn't mean it that way. How do we get at that
Yeah.
without compromising our values, our convictions? So those are just a couple of examples of how that could be. I see it as being more in person. I know a lot of people are like, well, that sounds really good. I'd like to do it by Zoom. Zoom is okay if you can't do it any other way,
Yeah.
but because ethics are relational, are behavioral, we really need to sit in the same room and look each other in the eye and,
Hmm.
and, and have that experience of wrestling together about it. So the
Yeah.
preferred platform is in person, but
Yeah.
um, the other is tentatively possible, I guess I'd like to say. Maybe that's a little bit too tentative, but I don't want to shut anything down.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
What have you found has been one of the most common asks for the ethics class or course or topic, say in the last 2 years? What's been the biggest ask? Is it AI? Is it sexuality? Is it governance? Is like all of those things?
hmm I think the buzz one right now is AI. Everybody's talking about AI. I was kind of digging around this week, and man, I think there's like 15 books that have jumped on the Amazon bestseller list in the last 6 months on AI, and they
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
from all kinds of directions. So that's one. People are either so in love with it or scared silly about it. So those two polar extremes are in the
Hmm.
mix there, and it's driving business issues up the. Yeah, just incredibly so. So AI is one. I think people are wanting to do things around sexuality, but they don't want the fight that goes with it. So they have the question, but can we
Yeah.
do it without throwing rocks at each other, please? And my
Hmm.
answer is absolutely. I don't allow rock throwing. That's not cool.
Yeah.
Um, to be honest, yes, for sure. But to ask hard questions, yes, for sure. But to go after each other and have some kind of litmus test, I'm not sure that's the direction that we're heading. Another one I've been asked recently about is the whole thing of um, what's the difference between patriotism and Christian nationalism? And
Mm.
that's really getting
That's a
so,
good, yeah, big question.
that kind of thing. And how do we do that? And um, our associational history has been one of being involved in government without necessarily wrapping the cross in the flag. And so, how do we do that now in the climate that we're in? That's another one.
Mm.
Another one that people have talked about, even though they haven't asked for something specifically, but I'm ready to do that, is as our culture ages, the end of life issues and medicine and how people are treated and insurance and what they allow and don't allow and all that kind of stuff is
Yeah.
absolutely huge, and the guilt that goes with that. And how do churches help folks who are struggling with care for someone who's declining? Not
Yeah.
just what resources do they have, but how do they look at it and know that they're doing the best they can do in a Christ-like way? And what does
Yeah.
that look like? And what is involved in that? So that's another one. And keep pushing my button, and I'll keep giving a list. But yeah, there's just about everything that we have in our lives together has something to do with relationship and behavior, and therefore it's ethical. And I would even go so far as to say you can have an unethical relationship with God.
That's. I'd like to hear a little more about that. I mean, that is, yeah, because everything is underpinned, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
And when I say that, it's kind of provocative. I know that, and I say that on purpose. But how many of us, and I think that I started to say two things at once, apologies. If you look at the ancient church fathers and mothers, they named it differently, but they had a concern for, do I love God for God, or do I
Yeah.
love God for what I can get from God?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in our personality-driven pulpit era, I think we have to be very careful when we say we're responding to the call of God to ask ourselves that hard question of, are we responding to the call of God, and are we willing to sacrifice and even suffer for that call? Or is it because I think I'm going to get something out of that feeds my need for significance?
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we all have it. I mean, philosophy acknowledges, whether it comes from a religious background or not, philosophy acknowledges that we have this egocentric predicament. You can't see the world from any perspective but your own two eyes. You
Yeah.
can't get out of it. It's who we are. It's how we're created. We're limited. We're finite. But if we allow that to run unchecked, I think we can use and abuse God. And that's where I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of misconduct that happens in churches comes out of that use and misuse of God instead of serving and being obedient.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also where I feel a lot of Christians maybe get their feelings hurt when God doesn't fit their bubble or check their box or answer their prayer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally agree.
Yeah. 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 Very good. Very good. So then you mentioned a little bit earlier, whether it's a church itself or a group of churches, or something related to, the church and the community that it's in. So then what groups are we actually aiming the Ethics Institute at? Is there, for lack of a better term, sort of a hierarchy of where we're going to go first, or are we just making ourselves available for, those connected to Mission Northwest and that kind of thing?
Yeah. Again, don't want to limit anything unnecessarily, but we are limited by time and energy, of course. And keeping that in mind, there's two kind of directional pieces of that. One is, if you are someone who's coming to a church to serve in a leadership capacity and are going for ordination, then there's a certain number of things that you need to do in the training that you need to have, that we used to do once a year without fail, almost without fail, except for COVID. And those things have to happen in order to qualify to meet the standards for ordination. And so we'll continue to do that. And we're working on having those back in person so that we can get the full benefit out of that. And right now I'm looking at doing one on kind of the western Washington somewhere, and then again in southern Idaho. The Summit Church in Boise has already volunteered to host the one in Idaho, and that would be a 2-day thing, like probably a Friday afternoon through Saturday afternoon thing, where people come together and break bread together, and we'd go through the materials that way together. So that's one aspect. We'll cover it all at once, so they don't have to kind of pick here and do one over there and did I get that one? And kind of confusing piece that way,
Right,
because they're
right.
core set that way. The other ones are kind of an invitation. Hey, we know this is what we're struggling with. Can you come and do something on human sexuality for our young adults who are, in the middle of all of that? And so we would name it something that would be appealing to them, with the understanding this isn't a come and get thumped on the head sort of thing, but giving people tools that are reflective of Christian convictions in Scripture, and ways to approach it that are non-aggressive and
Hmm.
non-condemning, but at the same time holding fast to the convictions. And so a church could do that for themselves, for a board, for a group within the church. I would always encourage the church to say, hey, so you're Church X and you have a sister church, 50 miles away or 20 miles away or whatever, 20 minutes away.
Hmm.
Maybe you want to invite them and build some connections between churches that way. If a church wanted to do it and host it for churches in their community, that would work too. We really want to meet the need that is there, to help folks get beyond the really, I guess I used the word aggressive. I was listening to one for, all I could stand was 5 minutes of it, but it was a radio program. I was going somewhere this week, and um, it was very accusing. And if you don't
Mm.
believe this, then you're that, and you're absolutely wrong, without
Yeah.
any understanding of the people's lives and situations they're involved in. So that would be the hope. Other
Yeah.
things as needed. I think my background gives me enough flexibility to say I can create something to meet what would be most helpful to you.
Nice.
And on
Awesome.
top of those trainings for churches, ordination candidates, our Pastor Connect groups that meet about nine
Yeah.
times a year throughout the region, are required to have at least one ethics training per year. I think the one, Wes, that you attend has already had yours this year. Did you guys have an
Yes, we
ethics?
did.
Yeah,
We did the ethics in AI. Hmm.
ethics and AI. Cool.
Yeah.
And so that's right there. That's 13 groups throughout our region. A couple of them meet on Zoom because of the nature of the group. Most of them are in person. So
Hmm.
that's going to keep you busy, Patty. Those groups, yeah. And then there's, I mean, we have a vision that this thinking deeply about biblically based, Christocentric, cruciformed ethics, a lot of words there to describe it, but is not just something for our tribe and our pastors in development in the ordination pipeline, and for our lay leaders, but also for the greater kingdom. And so I think, Patty, yeah, have you been contacted by at least one other group outside or sister
Mhm.
group? Yeah.
Yeah, the Sister Association has begun conversations with me about what would it look like for you to come and not just do it for us, but help us learn how to do it. So, because they're on the east side of the country, I'm not 35 anymore, drat, and so the whole passing it on and helping folks get that in their own way and in their own circumstance is really important to me, because my vision is that we would develop communities of ethical faith that would go deep and wide, not just program, but this would be a part of what we're known for. That our churches would be seen as groups that not only know the information of the gospel, but they actually allow it to transform their lives and their behaviors.
Yeah.
And that to me
So
is
good.
something I think our 21st century church really needs to
Yeah.
challenge what we've inherited from the Enlightenment, because it's really easy to say, I have the information of Scripture, I have the information of the gospel. I've taken all the
Yeah.
notes. I've done the Bible studies. I know what it says. Um, the demons know what it says, and it makes them shudder. Sometimes I think we hear it and we shrug our shoulders, and that's about all we get out of it. It
Yeah.
doesn't do anything to cause us to do what it says in Galatians, that we're crucified with Christ,
Hmm.
and yet we live. What does that
Yeah.
"and we live" look like? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting to me because we live in this highly individualized age that seems like ethical issues are getting more complex and life is just murkier. And yet as we look around for organizations doing something like you're able to do and the Mission Northwest is supporting, I don't see a lot of people saying we need to, I know that they're out there and you probably read these folks, Patti, but we need to think deeply about ethics. We need to really go deeper theologically and in how we're processing this so we can be ethical communities of faith. And so as we surveyed the scene before launching the Ethics Institute, there's not a ton of what we're proposing to launch. There's not a ton of options out there. You can go take an hour online course from your insurance company online today, and then check the box and,
Right.
but that's not what we're talking about here, right? We want to equip people to live for Christ in the murky waters that we're in and in the highly individualized age that we're in. How do we navigate that and represent Christ well? So I'm just excited. I don't know if this is a question. I'm excited that Mission Northwest is behind this, that the board is promoting this, that God has placed Patti with such a wealth of experience and resources to offer these deep courses and a willingness to expand them to meet the need of the moment. I'm guessing there wasn't a lot of people 5 years ago probably for asking for a AI and ministry ethics course.
Right. Jumping at the bit for that kind of thing, right? No.
But we need it. Our local churches need it. So we've got to figure out how we can best support it so that leaders hear about it, churches hear about it, and take advantage of learning and growing in these ways. So,
and if we don't, people will cobble together their own answers, hoping they're doing as well as they can, and then not know if they're standing within a solid background, a solid foundation of orthodoxy, if I can use the big fancy word, and hope they do, but that leaves you unsettled so that when somebody challenges you, you fall apart, which is not a real good witness for Jesus to not have that kind of humble confidence. I'm not saying that we become arrogant. We don't want to become the thing we hate or that we're fighting against, but I believe that wrestling together, that's why I believe the phrase communities of ethical faith is important. It's communities of ethical faith. That helps us stand together and encourage one another in the doing of the gospel, in the living, the behaving of the gospel. And you only get that if you know that you're shoulder to shoulder with somebody else, linking arms and not letting go of them to actually make this happen, even when it's hard and it hurts and it's painful and people disagree with you. You find some way to live in that with humble confidence and the love of Christ.
Yeah, I love that, Patti. Like if you don't choose to engage in this thinking and learning, your options are just your angry response, or you cobble together a response, or you bury your head in the sand.
Yep.
And maybe there's another response, but why not say, okay, these are hard questions. Let's invite Patti into our congregation and talk about some hard challenges we're facing, or we're not sure if we're dealing with financial issues right in our church. We had a financial scare, or we had a financial mismanagement issue happen. And instead of just correcting the bylaw, which is a good thing to do too, maybe what's the questions underneath that? We need to talk about our financial ethics and ask the big questions, or maybe, okay, we're working on our procedure and bylaws for our children's ministry. We work on these governance things, but what are we thinking ethically about how we take care of our children in our community or all our vulnerable populations? I just think these deep conversations are important. Mm-hmm.
Sorry, yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I really resonate with that, Corey. Is our why articulated and founded in Christ and the scriptures, and then does our how match our why?
Yeah. That's good.
Because this is partly because of AI, people can let AI do their thinking for them. Like, oh, give me a boilerplate AI, give me a boilerplate bylaws on children's ministry or whatever, and do no thinking, and then think, oh, I've got the industry standard rules and governance for this, or and we've got to do our own thinking and have our own conversations. One of the reasons that it's important that as many of the trainings as possible can be in person, or at least have facilitated conversations, is we've got to wrestle through this together and talk it out. Yeah.
Because the world will tell us what it wants us to know, and it's not based on the fact that God loves us and wants a better life for us than what we have. That's not its goal.
Right. Right. Well, as a recipient and a participant, actually, of your ethics and AI, time that we had together with our PCG, I don't know, back in February, was it? Something like that?
Yeah.
I can tell you that in a room full of pastors and leaders, there were questions, there were pushbacks, there were situations that were covered, and all of it was just very, it was very personalized. It was very well thought out. It wasn't just information overload. It was give and take. Patti is excellent at pulling out the why questions from you. So if she shows up, just know she's going to ask you why. Because that's really what we're getting down to, is why is your orthodoxy and your orthopraxy not matching, and where does that come from? And well, where did you get that? Was that picked up from a grandparent or a previous a predecessor pastor or leader, or and it was a really good time. I wish we had more time to go through some other stuff, and also Patti has a wealth of knowledge for the resources as well. If she can't have it on the spot, she definitely has a book or an article or something that guides you to the next part of the ethics journey that we're on, because it's not just like you said, it's not just information dispensation or overload. It literally is, we're on a journey to become an ethically based community of faith. And so I do have to say I really enjoyed our time together at the PCG, and I got to bring it home to my staff and some of our people here, and we had those conversations ourselves. So
Cool.
Excellent.
Really cool.
That's what we want to hear and see more of within our churches and spread throughout the kingdom. I
believe
excellent.
As that happens, that will be an avenue for the gospel into our communities, because people will see, they'll stop throwing the hypocrite thing at us and go, oh, so that's what that could be. I want that. I'm interested in that. It's the counter to that, flippant comment about, well, I don't go there because they're hypocrites, because that is one of the main reasons we have such a huge number of nuns and de-churched duns people in the Northwest, as they've looked around and went, no, thank you. Don't want to get hauled into that drama, or I've watched how you treat each other in the church. Thanks, but no thanks. And that's one of the top 5 reasons why people don't engage in church or religion or any of that kind of thing, whatever you put the label of it on, is that it's the behavior of those of us who claim to be followers of Jesus. They're they've checked out of that. But we can turn that around. I really believe that.
Yeah.
I just think it's
Awesome.
so important, Patty. That the age we live in is an age of cancellation.
Yeah.
Like so, and people on the right can do it, the left, religious, non-religious. So we disagree with something, or something passes our line of what we don't want to engage with, and instead of like asking questions or having conversations, there's this knee jerk for people to just cancel people. And sometimes that happens to the church, but
Yeah.
sometimes people in the church just cancel each other without
Yeah.
dialogue, without talking through the
Yeah.
issues. And I think some of what you're trained in doing and offering us, it allows us to become people who don't have these knee-jerk reactions,
Right.
but can become communities who talk through the real issues. I don't know if you have any thoughts about the cancel culture, or if I'm not saying that needs to be a separate class, but because I think, I don't know, it's just one of the responses that we have that's unhealthy.
I think I like that. I think probably that needs to be a part of everything, so that we have our convictions with compassion and not cancellations. And I think that's the problem, that we can't actually be formed by the cross, is because we are so dependent on somebody agreeing with us, whoever that is, or that we win, that we end up doing ourselves disservice. And I'm kind of get on the cringe side of the equation when I listen to people who, um, um, yeah, they're right. Technically, by conviction, they're right, but how they go about it is wrong.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's destructive and it's hurtful. And I said that to somebody who was being pretty aggressive at one point. And they said, "Well, Jesus turned over the tables in the temple." And I thought, yeah, he's Jesus. I'm not sure that any of us are qualified to do it quite like that. Not that you don't stand up for what's wrong, but why did you want to tell me that that's your reason for being aggressive?
Yeah.
Look, can we talk about that more than the action? What's behind that action? Why do you have to be right? And I've seen too many people who have biblical truth, absolutely, but they have done so much destruction with it that they've canceled the message, if you want to use the word cancel. And that's a heartache for me.
Yeah. One last note on that whole canceled thing. Our speaker at our last annual conference or tune-up, Josh Butler, he had gotten canceled for an excerpt that was published in his book, and now it's 3 years later, and he's doing a podcast series on cancellation, and I think it's called Canceled. I don't know if you want to put the link in the show notes, Wes, but I'm several episodes in, and he and the co-host are going deep on these exact questions about why do we respond in these ways, and he's looking at biblical stories of that help inform us. And anyway, the type of thinking you're doing, I know you like his work, but anyway, yeah.
His heart's in the right place. I've had that chance to have a couple of conversations in person with him and was so blessed by it. He's really worth listening to. Yeah.
Two more quick things, and then we can close up this podcast. I've had such a great time so far, Patti and Corey. Thank you guys. Where can anyone looking for the Ethics Institute find where this is going to be? I know we're still working on it for the Mission Northwest website. But is there any other way that we can get this content or contact Patti?
Maybe you could put my contact information in the show notes, Wes, but
Okay.
I have an email and a phone number, and I would welcome direct conversation, direct contact with anyone. We have a flyer that kind of summarizes what's available, and that's I think that's on the website. So that can be sent by link. Even if you can't get a hold of me, you can contact the region office and get a copy of that as a discussion starter in your church leadership board, whatever it is that you're looking for. I think those are probably the major ways at this point that we have um, getting the word out for folks. But I'm open to any other way that would be helpful as well.
Very good. Very good. Yes, they will be in the show notes. And my last question that I love to ask all of our guests, and sorry to put you on the spot with this one, but it should be pretty easy because in all of the things you have been doing and the doctorate and the preparing and the transitioning and the Ethics Institute and all of this stuff in ministry, what is God actually teaching you right now in this season?
Oh, that's a really good question. I really like that really good question. And if I have tomorrow, I might answer it a little bit differently, but in this moment, I would probably talk about the fact that cruciformed life is a daily thing. And for me, it's a daily thing. Even coming into this season, working to articulate some of this, try to figure out how it's going to have some life that hopefully is God driven, has caused me to have to let go of some things, and being formed by Christ can sometimes be painful. Do I trust that God has my best interest in mind? Do I really? And those are, repeatedly conversations that I'm finding myself having with the Lord. And sometimes I listen better than others. Sometimes I do a lot of yelling. And God is good. He listens to that. So I think right now that's what came to mind immediately when you asked the question, is the cruciformed life is hard in some ways, but it's also life-giving and joy-producing.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Patti. Corey, anything else?
No, that's wonderful. Thank you, Patti.
Yeah, this is great. Thank you, Patti, for being with us today. This will be on our YouTube channel. So if you are watching on our YouTube channel, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet done so. Please share this video out with anyone who you feel could benefit from our discussion and or even from the Ethics Institute. Again, all of the links will be in the show notes at the bottom. If you're listening on any of the major podcast platforms out there, Apple or Amazon or iHeartRadio or Spotify, the show notes will also have the same links, but make sure you like there as well. And we will be having many more of these podcast episodes coming out. So be sure that you are a part of our family, a part of our team. And if you've missed any of them, go back and watch and or listen, because Mission Northwest exists to resource and develop churches. And this is one of our major resources right here. And Patti, you are also one of our major resources here at Mission Northwest. And we are very grateful for you and grateful for your time today. And so I want to say thank you. And thanks everybody for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.
Take care.
Yep.
Bye.